You gotta turn this Xbox feature off now. Should we be worried about Game Pass's September lineup? And the world of game testing is about to change forever.
Just a reminder, if you take a look down at the description below, I have links for all sorts of Xbox gear. If you want to get in on this new generation of Xbox cloud gaming, I also have some links for some Samsung TVs that support the Xbox Game Pass app that they're coming out with.
Welcome back to another edition of Xbox Ready. Every Friday, I try to scour the internet for the juiciest stories in the Xbox world and serve them up to you on a nice content platter. First up, let's talk about this Activision Blizzard deal. So one of the best things that Xbox has going for it right now is its ability, for its parent company to buy up pretty much any studio or publisher that they want. They made a ton of headlines earlier in the year, obviously, when they announced their intention to buy Activision Blizzard along with all sorts of amazing IP, including Call of Duty, Overwatch, Diablo, World of Warcraft, Guitar Hero, maybe, I don't know. But as exciting as that announcement was, it obviously comes with a lot of problems. The deal has to be reviewed by all sorts of regulatory boards around the world. A lot of people, when they made this announcement, they were thinking, oh my gosh, we're gonna be living in a future where Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Overwatch, it's all gonna be exclusive to Xbox. This is crazy. But it turns out that is a big no-no, and it's becoming increasingly clear that if Xbox, Microsoft, if they want this deal to go through, they have to make sure that Call of Duty specifically is going to remain multi-platform for the foreseeable future. At first, it was widely believed that Microsoft was just gonna honor Activision Blizzard's current obligations to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation for the next 3 games. That includes the Modern Warfare 2 game that's coming out this year. But ever since then, they've had to continually double down and say, no, seriously guys, for real, we're keeping Call of Duty multi-plat. And more recently, Phil Spencer has doubled down yet again and said, Microsoft has committed to making the series available on PlayStation for several more years after Sony's current marketing deal with Activision expires. In January, we provided a signed agreement to Sony to guarantee Call of Duty on PlayStation with feature and content parity for at least several more years beyond the current Sony contract, an offer that goes well beyond typical gaming industry agreements. The current discourse about Sony's dominance over Microsoft in the gaming space has been attributed to the fact that they have games that you can't play anywhere else besides a PlayStation console. Spider-Man, God of War, Uncharted. And now the discourse is sort of changing. They're saying, oh, without Call of Duty, it's gonna be kind of hard to compete, guys. I don't know if we can do it. So guys, obviously I'm not a businessman. I have no idea the inner workings of a deal, especially of this size, how it can go through, how it can be approved. But from what we are hearing, a lot of people who want Xbox to go for that knockout punch and make all of Activision Blizzard's IPs exclusive to Xbox, you're probably going to be disappointed, because it seems like in order to get this deal through, they're going to have to play nice and make sure everything is available on all platforms going forward. Next up, let's talk about Game Pass. Like I always say, it is not an Xbox Ready video unless I talk about Game Pass in some way. We now have a clearer idea of what games are coming to the service in the month of September. Should we be a little bit worried? Now, we're heading into the fall season, which is typically a very big time for the video game industry. Today, on Tuesday, September 6th, it'll be Friday by the time this video goes out, but today we got Disney's Dreamlight Valley. Now guys, we've been doing this dance on Xbox Ready for about a year now. I know my audience, probably the vast majority of you watching, are not going to be excited about Disney's Dreamlight Valley coming to Xbox Game Pass. But I still think it's a pretty solid addition. Obviously, ever since Animal Crossing blew up, everyone's been searching for that next big sim experience, town building experience, and this is basically being touted as Animal Crossing with just Disney elements to it. And I think it's pretty cool that while other people on other platforms have to pay $30 in order to play this game, it comes as part of our Xbox Game Pass subscription. Not only that, they also throw in some in-game currency, some new cosmetics as part of your Xbox Game Pass subscription. So overall, I think it's a pretty solid offering. If I'm being honest though, I only really care about one game in this whole lineup that they put out, and that's Metal Hellsinger. Now, this is something that they showed off back at the Game Awards last year, and it's essentially like another Doom clone. Obviously, we've seen a lot of those, but this time, guys, this time you're fighting your way through the hordes of hell to this sick metal soundtrack. Now, I think that this is a pretty interesting take on a formula that we're all pretty much familiar with by now. And from what we've seen gameplay-wise, it looks really fun. Outside of that, I really think the success of Game Pass this month is going to hinge on the full release of Obsidian's Grounded. Now, if you're not familiar with Grounded, it's been on Game Pass for a while. It's been playable on Xbox for a while, since 2020, but it's all been an early access build, a preview build, if you will. This game is a survival game that is centered around the premise of a movie like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Honey, I Shrunk Ourselves. You're trying to survive in this backyard after you got shrunk down, and you're fighting off these bugs. There is a cooperative aspect as well, so you can actually get with your friends and make a little cool fortress out of sticks if you really want to, and just fight off hordes of ants. Now, believe it or not, this is actually going to be the only Xbox Game Studios release that we're going to see for a while come to Game Pass. And I feel like not a lot of people are talking about this game, maybe because it has been available for so long prior to its full official release. But I just got done playing through The Outer Worlds again, another Obsidian game, and it's like, dang, these guys make good games. People should be looking forward to Grounded a lot more than I feel like they are, if that makes sense. Hopefully the discourse changes on that a little bit once the game is fully released on September 27th. Outside of that, we have heard nothing about Deathloop coming to Game Pass this month. And as we get a little bit closer to when that timed exclusivity deal with Sony ends, which is September 14th, by the way, I'm getting a little nervous that we're not going to see it for a while. Maybe not this month, maybe not next month, maybe not until next year, which is absolutely whack. It should be on Game Pass with the rest of Bethesda's library, with the rest of the Arcane games. And then all of a sudden we get news that Deathloop is going to be added to PS Plus Extra. What's up with that? I know the stipulations of the contract that Sony worked out with Bethesda before they were acquired by Xbox have it to where the people at Xbox, they can't mention Deathloop at all, not even a peep. So maybe they're sitting on something pretty cool. They just can't talk about it. But I'm getting nervous as we're getting closer. I just want Deathloop on Game Pass, man. Is that too much to ask? Up next, this popular Xbox feature may be costing you over $100 a year. I'm talking about Instant On, or a lot of people call it standby mode. Now, I've been on quite a journey when it comes to this topic. I first stumbled across it on Reddit on r/Xbox Series X, and someone posted about it and they were like, yo, if you have Instant On or have your Xbox in standby mode, your Series X, it costs you about 132 pounds extra a year to have that feature on. A year of Xbox Game Pass is like, what, 120 bucks? Ultimate is 180 bucks. So you're telling me by having just this little feature on, it's almost as expensive as those subscription services? That's crazy. But I scrolled down like a millimeter on that post and he said, edit, update, it was my bad, guys. I was going off the launch numbers where it used to take up 14 watts of power in Instant On, and they've kind of modified that since then. They've cut it down to 11 to 13 watts, I believe, when you have your Xbox in Instant On or standby mode. But still, some people are alleging that, hey, this could cost you, having Instant On activated on your Xbox Series X, up to $5 extra a month. And I know that doesn't seem too crazy, but in this wild world that we're living in, when there's heat waves everywhere, everyone's trying to save energy, that could be a really huge difference when it comes to your budget. A lot of people like Instant On, they like standby mode. It was widely believed that if you had your Xbox in standby mode, had Instant On checked off, that even when your Xbox was off, it would still update your game, which is pretty cool. You'll never run into a situation where you turn your Xbox on, you go to play a game, and then they're like, oh, just kidding, we gotta download this update for 2 hours. But the thing about that is that it only applies to the last 3 games that you've been playing. The rest of the games in your library, tough luck. Forget about them. But yeah, now we know the cold hard truth of standby mode, Instant On, and a lot of media publications are already running with this because the Xbox standby mode uses a lot more power than the PlayStation standby mode or the Nintendo Switch standby mode. But trust me guys, when you own a PlayStation console, you pay for it in other ways. More expensive games, more expensive consoles that just marked up the price for the PlayStation 5, and all of the other regions except for the US. So yeah, the grass is not always greener on the other side. So recently we got another roadmap update from 343 regarding Halo Infinite. Long story short, people are very mad at 343. It's gone so far that Fire 343 has started to trend on all sorts of social media platforms. But after spending a lot of time in Halo Infinite, I could probably say that, well, not a lot of people are happy with how 343 has handled the Halo franchise. So as a quick history lesson, Halo Combat Evolved, Halo 2, 3, and Reach were all developed by Bungie before they left Microsoft and they were like, we're gonna do our own thing before we get bought by Sony. And ever since then, 343 has been in charge of the Halo Combat Evolved remake, Halo 4, Halo 5, and Halo Infinite. And it's largely viewed that, oh, 343, since they took over, Halo games stink now. But it's also very confusing because people will say that when these games launch, and then years later they'll be like, well, there's actually a lot of things I liked about Halo 4. Well, Halo 5, it wasn't my favorite, but the multiplayer was the best. So it's like 343 is doing some things right, but they don't have like a clear home run win when it comes to Halo games yet. And Halo Infinite, when that launched, a lot of people were like, yo, Halo Infinite, it's amazing, it's a return to form, this is awesome. We were all high on like this Xbox nostalgia because it was released simultaneously. It was like a surprise release as part of the Xbox 20th anniversary celebration tour. It has been the most miraculous turnaround, I feel like, in gaming. Usually a game launches and people are like, this sucks. And then over time they're like, actually, this is really awesome because they added a bunch of updates and a bunch of content. But for some reason, Halo Infinite has experienced the reverse of that situation. For me personally, I'm a little torn because I played a lot of Halo Infinite, and at its core, the gameplay still feels fun. I think it's a good mix of classic Halo with some things that we saw from the more recent installments. And to be honest, guys, the core gameplay of Halo, even from the beginning to now, hasn't changed that much. The most radical additions have been like Clamor and Sprint. The gripe that people have with 343 is that there hasn't been enough quote-unquote content compared to other live service games. As part of this roadmap that they released, they dropped the news on us that they're working on campaign co-op, which is still missing, but bad news, there's not gonna be split screen co-op. And me personally, that's probably something I could live without because there's no one in my immediate friend group that's gonna sit down with me on a couch and play Halo. But I can see how that bothers fans because that's been a feature that's been in every other Halo up until this point. Halo Infinite is almost a year old, and at this point last year I was thinking, oh man, they're gonna have new DLC for the campaign. They're gonna have Forge mode, they're gonna have campaign co-op, and we have none of that yet. Halo Infinite should be the game on Xbox right now. And simply, it's just not. Can they make a turnaround like some of these other games that we've seen? No Man's Sky, Fallout 76, Cyberpunk? I don't know how much of this is 343's fault. Like I said, I know nothing about game development. It could be that like Halo is just not the shooter that people want to play right now. I personally have faith in 343. I feel like once we start to see some of these updates, Forge, campaign co-op, even if it is online only, I think they could really turn around public opinion. But again, all of that stuff should have been included in the game at launch. Next up, let's talk about PAX West. Now, PAX is a series of conventions that center around gaming. They have PAX West, PAX East, PAX South, all sorts of directions. More specifically, Xbox executive Matt Booty spoke in an interview at PAX West and had a lot of interesting things to say. This includes his belief that the days of one single studio pumping out one AAA game are long gone. He made the argument that nowadays, these games, these big budget AAA titles are so big, they're so massive in scale, that there's no way that a single studio can pump one out successfully. This was largely in response to people asking him about The Initiative and their work on the Perfect Dark remake. Now, as a reminder, The Initiative, which is this new studio comprised entirely of vets to work on the Perfect Dark remake, caught a lot of flack earlier this year, or I feel like a couple months ago. Whenever it was, they caught a lot of flack because they were folding in Crystal Dynamics into their team, teaming up with them to work on this Perfect Dark remake. And a lot of people were looking at, reading that on the internet, tweeting about it and saying, oh man, Perfect Dark, The Initiative, they're in trouble. I'm hearing things about people from The Initiative leaving and they're replacing them with Crystal Dynamics. What's going on? And basically Matt Booty was like, no. It's all good, guys. It's all good. He said how we make games is evolving. The idea of a single team under one roof really doesn't happen that often anymore. I'll use an example. Our Perfect Dark team down in Santa Monica, The Initiative. So we just did this big partnership with Crystal Dynamics and I read online, oh, this must mean there's a problem or something. It's quite the opposite. right? We've got this veteran team at Crystal Dynamics, a big AAA team with over 100 people that becomes available. Of course, we would want to work with them, particularly if they've made a game like this before. And yeah, I don't know if I totally buy that everything's all fine and good and well and peachy over at the Initiative with their work on Perfect Dark, but that line of thinking, it makes a lot of sense to me. We talked about Halo earlier, and yes, while we do attribute Bungie and 343 working on those games, they also had support. They also had Certain Affinity down in Austin helping them out. And even now, Certain Affinity is working on a Battle Royale mode for Halo Infinite, separate from what 343 is working on. That line of thinking, it makes total sense to me. I don't know if it explains entirely all of the senior staff that left the Initiative and some of the other issues that we've been hearing about when it comes to this Perfect Dark reboot. The closer that you look into it, you start to realize, oh, some people at the Initiative, they used to work at Crystal Dynamics. So it's not as crazy of an affiliation or a team up as I feel some people are making it out to be. Matt Booty also provided another exciting update regarding a highly anticipated Xbox First Studios game. I'm talking about Fable. And overall, he had some very good things to say about the team over at Playground Game. He also said, the stuff that I've seen from Fable over at Playground, I tell them, man, we should show this off. We should show the world. And then Playground Games comes out and they're like, no, 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 no. We're not ready to show it until it's absolutely done and ready, until we say so.
For this next portion of the Matt Booty interview, I was so excited that I had to go and change my outfit completely. Moving on to perhaps one of the more controversial moments in this interview. It's not really that controversial, but I know a lot of people are going to be mad about this online, twisted in all sorts of ways. Matt Booty suggested that he went to Microsoft and said, hey, instead of having human game testers, we should develop some AI programming to do all that stuff for us. Now, game testing is one of those jobs when I was growing up that absolutely blew my mind. What do you mean there's a job out there where I can play video games all day and get paid for it? As we've come to find out, being a game tester is not the most glamorous thing in the world, and it can often be repetitive and a tedious process, the things that they have to do on a day-to-day basis. But obviously a future where robots and AI are testing out video games rather than humans, that's way off. So that's something we don't have to worry about for forever. I'm not gonna put too much stock in it.